We're good. I call this meeting to order. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Waki, Ottawa, and Mississauga peoples. Confirmation of the agenda, the Council of Township of North Huron hereby accepts the agenda for November 15th, 2021 council meeting as presented. Do I have a mover? I have Councilor McBurney moving. I have Councilor Van Hindersum seconding. All in favor? Carries. Disclosure, pecuniary interest. Go ahead, Deputy Reeve Sight.
Yes, thank you, Reeve. I just want through you just to, I will be declaring a conflict of interest for item 7.2.2, which is the cost of living, 2022 cost of living allowance discussion. Due to my wife, Tiffany Sipe, as being an employee of the municipality, I will not be providing any comment as to 7.2.2 or participating in any vote.
Thank you very kindly for that, sir. Public comments, opportunity for any member of the public to speak to an item that is on the business of the agenda today. 2 minutes per person. Is there anyone out in the audience? And if I can't see anybody, just stand up. Not seeing anyone, we shall continue on. Consent agenda, that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby accepts the agenda 5.1.1 to 5.1.2, and further that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives consent items 5.1.3 to 5.3.1 for information. Do I have a mover? I have Councillor Faulkner moving, Councillor Heffer seconding. Thank you. Would anybody like to pull anything out of the agenda? Seeing none, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Okay, we're going to go to 6, public meetings and hearings and delegations. 6.1 is zoning bylaw amendment, file Z06-2021, location west half of the lot 29, concession 7, East Wawanosh Ward, Township of North Huron, 38622 Glens Hill Road. Applicant is Tyson Hawkins. We're going to 6.1.1 is a presentation from the county planner, Hannah Holman, if you would like to speak to this.
Hi all, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm just going to bring my presentation up. So as noted, the next application is for a zoning bylaw amendment on a property on Glen Hills Road. So just moving along to the next slide. This is a 2020 aerial imagery of the subject lands highlighted in orange there. As noted, the property is on Glens Hill Road. The property is designated agriculture and is zoned general agriculture. What you will note about this aerial image is very faintly you can see that there is an existing motocross track on the southern half of the property, as well as a natural environment area in the middle portion of the property. Just moving along to some site photos of the property. So the following shows the property taken from the driveway entrance off Glen Hills Road. As noted here, there is an existing motocross track on the front of the property. The applicant is specifically seeking to allow the use of this track for events and motocross racing. In terms of the proposed amendment, which is the bylaw text was included with my report, but more specifically, just to summarize, the proposed amendment is seeking a temporary use bylaw. So just to provide a bit of background on this, a temporary use bylaw is a tool under the Planning Act that can be used to permit uses on a temporary basis for a maximum period of up to 3 years. The applicants in this case have requested that the temporary use bylaw be in effect for the maximum of 3 years. The specific use is for motocross racing, which also would include motorcycle racing, ATV riding, all of which would occur on the existing track, which is about 25 acres of the property. just carrying along. So specifically, they are proposing to permit the use as followed for a total of 4 annual events that would be 2 days in length over weekends, only one of which would occur on a long weekend. These events would be restricted to 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on these days, and applicants are required to give prior notice to the township of these events. They've also requested that additional weekly riding would occur on the property on Thursday evenings and Sunday afternoons, at the times being on Sundays from 12 noon to 6 p.m. and Thursdays between 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. So just moving along to the next slide. So further, in terms of the proposed amendment, as I stated previously, they will be required to provide notice to the township of the events 3 weeks prior. The agricultural uses on the balance of the land would still be permitted to be included as per the existing AG1 zoning on the property. And it's worth noting for council's history of the property, there was previously a temporary use bylaw permitted on the lands in 2008 to 2011 that sought to permit very similar types of events over a 3-year period. In terms of considering this against relevant policy, the North Huron official plan does provide for the use of temporary use bylaws in accordance with the Planning Act. Council should have consideration generally for whether there are any adverse impacts on surrounding uses or properties, if parking, access, and egress to the property can be maintained, and as well whether the use is in fact considered temporary. In terms of agency comments that were received, just before I go into summarizing these, I will note that a written letter was received from a member of the public, specifically Ryan Gauld, on behalf of the Amateur Motocross Ontario Association in support of the application. This letter has been included in the council package, but otherwise at this time there were no other public comments. In terms of other agency comments, Maitland Valley Conservation Authority and the County Stewardship Coordinator had no concerns as it related to the natural environment area. Township Public Works staff inquired about parking and access to the site. The applicant has advised that any equipment for off-road vehicles would be transported to site via trailers, and parking would be exclusively on site. As such, they have no concerns. Similarly, Township Fire at this time said they had no concerns. In terms of comments from building and bylaw staff, they did indicate that they had concerns with the portion of the bylaw as it relates to the permission to allow additional weekly riding on Thursday evenings and Sunday afternoons. Specifically, they were concerned about these weekly riding events as it increases the impact of the use on a temporal scale in terms of how frequent riding would occur on the property, particularly when compared to 4 events, as it would increase it to having it also twice weekly. The bylaw officer was concerned that this provision would be difficult to regulate in terms of the number of riders and ensuring that time restrictions are observed and minimizing adverse impacts on neighbors. These comments were incorporated and considered in the recommendation in my report. So as such, in light of comments provided by bylaw staff, my report does recommend a revision to the bylaw as proposed and originally circulated to remove the following provision, which is that further riding shall be permitted on Sundays from 12 noon to 6 p.m. and Thursdays between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. Events during the 4 weekends annually are still recommended to be permitted, as no concerns were raised from agencies on this. The revised bylaw text is included in the report, as well as the full text is included in the agenda. In terms of the recommendation, it is recommended that the application be approved. However, just including the removal of the following wording there that's on the screen that just speaks to those weekly events. More specifically, in terms of the recommended motion, it is recommended that the zoning bylaw amendment application be approved, subject to the revision that removed the text speaking to additional riding on Sundays and Thursdays. It is worth noting that this is a recommended revision to the bylaw as proposed and circulated publicly. Should council be agreeable to the proposed revisions, it is recommended that council pass an additional motion that a change has been made to the zoning bylaw, but that the change is considered minor and no further public notification is required unless otherwise requested. So this motion is included on the following slide as well as in my report. And I'm happy to revisit this at the time if council choose to proceed with the amendment. But essentially the effect of this is just speaking to the fact that a public meeting was held. Minor changes were made to the proposed bylaw. And as such, council does not feel the need for an additional notice of an additional full circulation of the application unless otherwise requested. So I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have about this. I also will note that the applicant is in the audience.
Thank you very much, Hannah. 6.1.2, this is an opportunity to comment on application by applicant and/or agent. Anyone want to speak? Not seeing anyone. 6.1.3, opportunity to comment by others in attendance. Not seeing anyone. Of course, she's talked about the letter of support. 6.1.3.1, did anyone want to speak to that? Go ahead, Kevin. Mr. Councilor Faulkner.
Thank you. Through you, Reeve. I'm surprised that the only comment that we're making the alternation to the original request was by municipal staff worrying about how many of not being able to regulate how many riders are going to be there on Thursdays and Sundays, and that being their only concern. The usage of the property would be the responsibility of either the leasee or the landowner in any case. I can't see any detrimental changes happening to the piece of property when it's already a dirt track meant for that that kind of operation. So I put my support to the full request and not the amended request. I don't think it's council's position to, or anyone's position to dictate what someone does on a piece of property that's deemed to be used for that purpose. I think it would be much more advantageous for the township to have a place for ATVs and motocross bikes to ride on a greater length of time than just on a programmed weekend for practice and recreational riding. I think it would do the township a great service if we were to allow it to be used for their full intent. Hopefully keeping them off the side roads and off the ditches and the farm laneways. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that kind of leads us into opportunities for question comments from council members.
I thought that's what you were asking.
No, that's okay. I thought you were speaking to the letter from Ryan, so that's fine.
Oh, sorry.
Yep, no, that's fine. Okay, so is there any other councillors that would like to speak to this? Not seeing any. Sorry, Deputy Reeve Site.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I guess my question is it relates to the temporary use. So from 2011 to today, there hasn't been a temporary use bylaw informed. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So my understanding from looking at previous files on the property was there was a temporary use bylaw in effect from 2008 to 2011. And since the 3 years lapsed, it did expire. And from what I understand, the owners did not seek to renew that. And as well, speaking with the current applicant, I understand that they've recently acquired the property from the previous owners. So that may provide some insight on why that lapsed.
Okay, and then I guess as a follow-up question that I have is that, you know, I don't, in one respect, I don't disagree with Councillor Faulkner's comments as it relates to dictating to an individual property owner about what we regulate on if we're allowing that on their property. The only issue that I have is that it's a temporary use. So if that owner wanted to request an actual amendment and make that make it a full use, then I think council would have a more opportune time to say and maybe adjust whether, because if we make that change, then I would completely agree with Councillor Faulkner as to the sense that if they want to change the zoning bylaw to allow that permitted on their property, then I'm actually in favor of what Councillor Faulkner is talking. The difference is, in my mind, it's because it's temporary. Because they are choosing not to go through the whole process of a zoning bylaw amendment, then my concern is that, and I've said this before on these temporary use bylaws, is that the word temporary means it's going to be for a short amount of time. If somebody just continually comes up with the word temporary year after year after year after 3 years, and it's 50 years going in, then the question is it really temporary in the sense? So I mean, arguably, the fact that it's new ownership, they're wanting it, that it's coming again under a temporary zoning bylaw. I think as council, future councils, when that comes back, I think they need to ask the question of whether it's really a temporary zoning change or it's actually a permanent zoning change. They just don't want to go through the process of making it permanent. And I mean, that's the question that I have in the future, but not today. I'm in absolute support of what the recommended motions is as they read today, only for that reason, because it is a temporary in nature.
Thank you very kindly. Anita, sorry. Councillor Van Henderson.
Thank you, Riveli. May I ask a question to Tyson?
Yes.
Tyson, are you in favor of doing stuff that you be open during Saturdays or Thursday nights as well? Or are you afraid that your track will be all ruined up by usage when somebody isn't there?
Basically what we're planning on is for Saturdays and the Thursdays would be just like personal use for like very close family and friends. It wouldn't be open to the public. It would just be maybe a couple people, but usually under 10 people. The actual events would just be on weekends. Like the only the 4 events we're trying to apply for.
Okay.
So just the Thursday and Saturday would just give the neighbors a heads up that we may be in there, we may not be, but it would just be a small.
Okay, and how are you planning to prevent people going on your property then?
There'll be a fence and a gate and everything up front. So
Over the whole, the whole property will be fenced in?
Yep.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Not seeing any. 6.5.1 zoning bylaw procedural following a public meeting. This is a public meeting of the Council of the Township of North Huron. Thus, the decision of council may or may not be made this evening. If the bylaw is passed by council, the clerk is required to send notice of a passing of the bylaw to all persons and agencies notified of this public meeting. There is a 20-day objection period from the time the notice is passing of the bylaw has been mailed by first-class post, wherein submissions and letters of objection or support in respect to the passing of the bylaw will be received by the clerk. If an objection is received, the applicant is lodged with the Ontario Land Tribunal, and at that point, the township no longer has any control over the time factor involved. If council does not pass the bylaw, the applicant may appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If the bylaw is passed and no objections are received within the objection period, the clerk certifies that the bylaw is in force and in effect as of the date of the passing of the notice forwarded to the Huron County and forwarded to the Huron County Planning and Development Department. 6.1.6 Summary comments, recommendations from the Huron County Planning Development Department.
Thank you. I'm just going to return just to my previous slide. So in terms of my recommendation, it is recommended that the zoning bylaw amendment application Z0621 be approved, subject to the proposed revisions that remove the text permitting additional riding on Sundays from 12 p.m. noon to 6 p.m. and Thursdays between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m.
Thank you.
Clarification.
Councillor Faulkner, yeah.
Just a clarification question. By approving the amendment, I'm just curious if the person applying for the temporary is the owner, and this is restricting the owner from having pleasure of his own riding ability on his own property, can we do that?
I'm going to throw that right back to the planner.
Right. So currently, right now, a motocross racing track is not permitted. It doesn't specifically identify if that's other people or specifically to the owner. So in that case, it would, in writing, it would restrict them from, other than those events, being able to ride. Of course, from a practical standpoint, you would also need to consider, would bylaw be required to, would they proactively go out there and enforce someone riding on their own property? But technically under the writing, yes, it would. It would restrict the motocross racing just to those 4 weekend events.
To clarify racing, then racing is a sanctioned body, or is racing just going out and riding a bike on your own property?
Right.
What do you clarify as racing?
So I'm just
Sanctioned body, or?
I'm just going to refer to the actual bylaw text. If you just give me a moment, I just want to make sure I'm reflecting what was accurately presented in there. So it says motocross racing, motorcycle riding, and all-terrain vehicle riding.
Okay, I just don't think we can do that. That's infringing on someone's rights.
I'm going to look to the clerk for clarification here. Can we, or should I be looking to the planner for clarification to move forward?
I could clarify. Right now, no racing is permitted on that because it doesn't comply with the zoning. Right. So basically, this temporary zoning amendment would actually permit racing to be to occur on that property, just as the planner has recommended. The recommended motion would be on those 4 weekends, where the applicant is requesting those 4 weekends plus every Sunday and Thursday during those specified hours.
But doesn't the request take that out? Isn't the
The request is the same. The planner's recommendation from the request is changed. Right. So the applicant is requesting the 4 weekends plus Sundays from 12 to 6 p.m. and Thursdays from 5 to 8 p.m. The planning recommendation for this application is to approve the request for the 4 weekends, but remove the provisions that would permit additional riding on Sundays from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. and Thursdays from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. based on agency comments received from bylaw enforcement.
Just before we get into a long, drawn-out conversation, there was a chance for council to ask questions. So if you're going to ask questions, I hope we're not going to get into a conversation back and forth. I think it was very clear what the recommendation is from the county sorry guys. Planner, thank you very kindly. County planner, so I think, and it's been explained by the clerk, so council has had the opportunity, unless there's something that's very important you'd like to speak to, you can. And I will start with Councillor Palmer. He did have his hand up first.
Yeah, thank you, Ray.
You're welcome.
To a planner. Yeah, I was sort of taken back when I saw your removal. I think it was good of the landowner to specify a couple of days that he would want to, we'll call it pleasure ride. It's not racing that he would be doing. It would be pleasure riding. Practicing, doesn't matter. It's not a race. It's not an official race. I have a hard time thinking that you can't ride on your own property. Like, we see little tracks around homesteads. I can think of one right now, and there's some others in our municipality, and they made them up. Some kid made them up, or maybe the dad did, and they're running on it. It's right at their property, and they're going to run anytime they want. So at least this gentleman has asked for 2 days where the neighbors will know and everyone else will stay away. It's just family. And I'm remiss of this. I can't see why you would, I guess I can see why, but I think it's an error. I think we should just leave it as it was, because it was his way of trying to make the system work for him, even though it's temporary.
Thank you, Council Palmer. Deputy Reeve-Site.
Yeah, all my comment was, I want to reiterate to council, this is the recommendation from the planner. It is not a it is not we don't have to take that recommendation. So if there's a counselor who wishes to change it or adjust it or amend it in any way, shape, or form, they have that right to do so. I think ultimately, I think where I want to just clarify from Councillor Faulkner's perspective is, if we had agricultural land that wasn't looking for a zoning bylaw amendment, that were riding ATVs, and there was a bylaw enforcement, there potentially, if there was a bylaw enforcement request, there is the potential that it doesn't meet the zone, therefore there could be an issue. I mean, that's what the county planner is telling us. I want to make sure and clear is that our bylaw enforcement in the township of North Huron is by complaint based only. We don't have a bylaw enforcement officer driving around the municipality 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or even 20 hours a week. I mean, it's complaint based only. So I mean, take that as how it reads. I mean, I agree with in the sense of Councillor Palmer and Councillor Faulkner's comment about, like, you know, the applicant is allowing and giving notice to the people what he would wish. So, I mean, I've made my comment as to why I agree with the recommended motion, but that is Council's prerogative.
So before I read the recommended motion, there's three motions before me. Before I read the first recommended motion, is there any council that would like to change this, or? Not seeing any, I'm going to go Councillor Palmer.
Yes, Reeve. I'd like to make an amendment that what has been restricted off would be put back in, so that everything reads as it would be, other than being than what the planner has.
You would, yeah, for clarity, your motion would just be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby approves the zoning bylaw amendment file Z06-2021 as it applies to west half of Lot 29, Concession 7, East Wawanosh, Township of North Huron, 38622 Glens Hill Road.
I have a mover with Kevin.
I didn't make the motion, so.
Did you want to make the motion, Chris?
Yes, please.
Okay, Chris makes the mover. Councillor Palmer is first. Councillor Faulkner is seconding it. Questions, comments, concerns? Last chance. None. All in favor? 3. It is defeated. Okay, so would anybody else like to make changes? Not seeing any, I'm going to read the original motion that was on the floor. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby approves the zoning bylaw amendment file Z06-2021 as it applies to the west half of the Lot 29, Concession 7, East Wawanosh, Township of North Huron, 38622 Glens Hill Road. Subject to the recommended revisions to remove text printing, additional writing on Sundays from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. And Thursdays from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. outside of the weekend events. Do I have a mover?
I will move.
I have Deputy Reeve Sites moving. Do I have a seconder? I have it. Councillor Van Hittersum seconding. Last chance for comments. I call the vote. All in favor? It carries. Second motion is going to be from the chart. Thank you very much, Hannah. If you could give us.
Yes, I would recommend that council select option A3 with respect to public comments, that public comments were received in support of the application, the effect of which results in a decision to approve the application, and that option B6 be selected, that agency comments were received on the issue of permitting weekly riding, the effect of which influenced the decision to approve the application with modifications.
Thank you. Do I have a mover?
I will move, Reeve.
I have Deputy Sipes moving. Seconder, please. I have Councillor Heffer moving. All in favor? Carries. Motion number 3. Whereas the Council of the Township of North Huron has held a public meeting pursuant to Section 34-1212 of the Planning Act with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw. And whereas certain changes have been made to the proposed bylaw after the holding of the public meeting. Now therefore, the Council of Township of North Huron hereby resolves that pursuant to Section 34-17 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13, the changes were of such a nature that no further notice is to be given in respect to the proposed bylaw prior to this passing. Do I have a mover?
I will move Reeve.
I have Deputy Seat, and I have Anita Van Hittersum seconding. Thank you. Last chance for comments. Seeing none, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Thank you very much. Clerk's report. 7.1.1 is the PO 2021-01 Police Services Board Community Representative seat vacancy. We're going to have Carson speak to this first.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as noted in the report, the North Huron Police Services Board has received a resignation from the community representative on the Police Services Board. However, logistically at this time, it doesn't make sense to fill the vacancy in light of the upcoming changes to with the soon-to-be enacted Community Safety and Policing Act, and therefore the transition to the OPP Detachment Board model. In speaking with the Ministry of the Solicitor General representatives, they were in agreement that logistically it doesn't make sense, seeing as the rollout is likely to occur in early 2022, and this individual would likely not be sworn in. If council were to fill the appointment, the individual will likely not be sworn in until the March 2022 quarterly meeting. So at this time, there's a recommended motion to declare the seat vacant until the move to the OPP Detachment Board model occurs, and directing staff to update the committee appointment bylaw to reflect this vacancy.
Thank you very much, Clerk Lamb. Does there anyone have any questions for Clerk Lamb, or maybe our Deputy Reeve Sipes, who also sits on the board, or Rick McBurney, who also sits on the board, about what's going on before I read the motion? I am not seeing any, so I will read the motion. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from the clerk dated November 15th, 2021, regarding the community representative seat vacancy on the North Huron Police Services Board for information purposes. And further, that council declares the North Huron Police Services Board community representative seat vacant until the Township of North Huron moves to the Ontario Provincial Police OPP Detachment Board model under the Community Safety and Policing Act 2019. And further, that bylaw number 25-2019, being the committee appointment bylaw, be amended to reflect this vacancy. Do I have a mover? I have Councillor McBurney moving, seconder. I have Councillor Heffer seconding. Last chance for questions, comments, or concerns. Seeing none, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. 7.1.2, amendment to procedural bylaw. I'm going to have Clerk Lamb speak to this one too before I read it.
Thank you, Your Worship. The purpose of this report is to seek an amendment to subsection 5.2A of the Township of North Huron Procedure Bylaw in light of the changes that were made under Bill 68, which was the Modernizing Ontario's Municipal Legislation Act. So specifically of note, new terms of council are sworn in on November 15th of the year of the regular election, where prior to this it was December 1st. We want to update the North Huron Procedure Bylaw to align with this. The way the wording has been drafted gives it a little more flexibility, so basically regardless of when the provincial legislation dictates that a new term of council can start, basically it gives the incoming council the ability to start on the earliest possible date. So happy to answer any questions if there is any.
Anyone have any questions for Carson? Not seeing any. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from the clerk dated November 15th, 2021 regarding an amendment to the North Huron procedural bylaw. And further, that the council direct the clerk to prepare a bylaw on December 6th for the December 6th, 2021 regular meeting to amend bylaw number 116-2017, the procedural bylaw. Do I have a mover? I have Councillor Heffer moving. Seconder, please. I have Councillor Palmer seconding. Last chance for questions. Seeing none, I call the vote. All in favor? Carries. 7.2. Donna.
So before you have a report on section 357 tax refund, the application relates to the demolition of a barn effective December the 12th, 2019. The result is a small credit for the taxpayer in the amount of $33.24. This meeting meets the requirements under the Municipal Act, and if the applicants were in attendance this evening, which I don't believe they are, they would be allowed the opportunity to speak on the application. And so notification was sent to them, advising them that we were recommending that this application be approved. Does council have any questions?
I don't see any questions or hands going up, therefore I will read the motion that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the Director of Finances dated November 15th, 2021 regarding tax refund under Section 357-1D1 of the Municipal Act in the amount of $33.24, and further, the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby approves adjustments to the collector's roll as recommended by the Director of Finance in the report dated November 15th, 2021. Do I have a mover? Councillor Palmer moves. Seconder, please. Councillor McBurney seconds. Last chance for questions. Seeing none, I call the vote. All in favor? Carries. 7.2.2 is cost of a living allowance, the COLA, and Director White is going to speak to this one too.
Yes, thank you, Reed. So as per the Human Resources Policy Manual, which was adopted on and came into effect on October 1st, 2021, provides for a salary philosophy, and it states on an annual basis the township will calculate the cost of living adjustment base as outlined in the policy, and that a report should come forward to council. So I've made that calculation, and based on what is outlined in the policy, the COLA for 2022 would be 2.41%. And as noted, then that makes an implication for the 2022 budget for full-time of approximately $64,000, and a very preliminary estimate for part-time at $23,400, with benefit costs increasing proportionately in addition to those figures. Is there any questions from council?
Does council have questions for the director? I'm not seeing any, so I'm going to go ahead and read the motion. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report from the Director of Finances dated November 15th, 2021 regarding the 2022 cost of living allowance COLA for information purposes, and further the staff be directed to incorporate COLA into the draft 2022 budget. Do I have a mover? I have Councillor Heffer moving. Do I have a seconder? I have Councillor Hinnersum seconding. Last chance for comments or questions. Seeing none, I call the vote. All in favor? Carries. Thank you very much. Next up, we have Recreation and Community Services. Director Gutenberger will speak to us about the Wingham Columbus Center. And I think, Vicki, I'm going to have you speak to this in questions and answers before I read the and remember, the motions I read can be adjusted. Okay? You don't have to take the motions we read do not have to be the motions. You can adjust them or ask for a different motion, please. Okay, it's yours, Vic.
All right, thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Council. The report before you this evening is regarding a request from the Wingham Columbus Center. It is with respect to reducing their annual contributions towards the utilities and operating costs of the North Huron Westcast Center for the next 5 years to help them recover from COVID-19. As indicated in the report, Council representatives and staff were invited to attend a meeting with members of the Board of Directors for the Columbus Center, at which time the topics of discussion included the challenges they're facing and meeting those, meeting the financial commitments, as well as the assistance that's needed to recover from COVID-19, and the potential use of the Wingham Columbus Center Hall and Lounge for township purposes. Recently, there was a discussion between the CAO and the chairperson of the Board of Directors for the Columbus Center regarding township use of the hall and lounge for meeting purposes. The chairperson indicated that the Board of Directors is open to discussions. The recommendation in this report is to defer a decision on the request until those discussions have occurred. If council has any questions?
Are there any
Happy to
questions?
answer.
Yes, are there any questions for Vicky before I read the motion? Any concerns? Not seeing any. 7.3.1, which is the 2021-21 Wingham Columbus Center request to reduce annual contributions in the amounts. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report prepared by the Director of Recreation and Community Services dated November 15th, 2021 regarding a request from the Wingham Columbus Center to have contributions amounts reduced for information purposes, and further that the Council of the Township of North Huron authorizes staff to establish a joint committee with the Board of Directors of the Wingham Columbus Center to discuss possible future uses of the space in the Wingham Columbus Center for township meeting purposes, and further that the Township of the North Huron defer the decision on the request made by the Wingham Columbus Center until the discussions have been completed. Do I have a mover? I have Councillor Faulkner moving. Seconder, please.
No, you didn't.
Palmer.
Sorry, sir.
Councillor Palmer. Sorry.
Polite, but
Did you, we're going to put that out for conversation first? Or?
Sorry, yes, sorry. Yes, let's have a conversation about this before I pull the motion out. Thank you for reminding me. Go ahead, Councillor Faulkner.
Thank you, Reeve. I would prefer to put forward a motion that we receive this information for information purposes. I would like to see if, prior to any conversations going forward, that this would probably be best discussed in a closed session meeting, because we're talking about a private company and municipal funds. So I would like to say that if we do have a conference, that before anything goes forward, we take it on information purposes, and before we have, we go forward with anything, that we have a discussion in closed session to find out what we're actually talking about here. I don't like an open-ended thing like this. I'd rather
I would
a full
have to
discussion on it.
consult the municipal act, but my initial thought is that would not be something subject to closed meeting provisions.
So we have a counselor that's uncomfortable with the way it reads. I'm going to lean on my clerk to help me with this, how we can word this that, well, first of all, is there other further discussions? Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Through you, Reeve, thank you. I'm taking this as the committee would meet with them again, and, with this information, and it's really good to, then you find out where a middle ground is. Doesn't mean it's what they request. It's middle ground, and then bring it to council, and then have discussion, and then go from there. That's how I take it.
Go ahead, Councillor Faulkner.
Thank you. Through you. Does this motion not request the allocation of funds or a deviation from the leasing agreement as it reads? So if it's passed, we're talking dollars already.
So
I'm
this,
going to have the clerk talk.
yeah, the draft motion as recommended by the director is basically to receive the request for information, establish a committee to discuss possible uses of the space to assist in their needs and potentially our needs, and then defer a decision on the actual request until those discussions have occurred. So there would be no
My
commitment to
misunderstanding.
financial support at this time.
Thank you. My misunderstanding. I will rescind my motion.
Thank you, Councillor Faulkner. Deputy Recite.
Yeah, I want to make sure it's clear is that staff is going to be taking the lead on this, not council. So staff are going to be, obviously the staff understand what our needs are as it relates to council space, meeting space, other options, other things that we potentially need from an overall perspective. That's why it's the way I read it is that staff are going to be taking the lead. Yes, did Councillor Palmer, myself, and the Reeve were actually at that meeting, but I mean, we don't necessarily need to be having in those meetings from now. This needs to be a staff-directed issue, and then they can bring back a report to council, and council can look at the whole merits of the entire request versus what our needs are, and take in information and do a recommended motion from that. That's the way I look at it. I look at it as the Columbus Center has needs. We as a township have needs that are being directed by staff to figure out what we can use, and then going for that, council can look at the whole picture and make a determination of how they want to see this go forward.
Yes, it says in here that the staff, that North Huron authorizes staff to establish a joint committee with the board of directors. It does not involve, my understanding is it does not involve council at this time.
Yeah, through your worship, in terms of, so the intention would be that, like any other potential agreements or arrangements that we would have, that essentially council would be directing staff or authorizing staff in this case to have discussions, as we've done in previous, and then we would bring back the outcome of those discussions for council's consideration.
That's the way I understood it too. Any further questions, comments, or concerns? Seeing none, I'm going to read the motion the way it is. That the Council Township of North Huron hereby receives the report prepared by the Director of Recreation and Communication Services dated November 15, 2021 regarding a request from the Wingham Columbus Center to have their contribution amounts reduced for further information purposes. And further, that the Council of the Township of North Huron authorizes staff to establish a joint committee with the Board of Directors of the Wingham Columbus Center to discuss possible future uses of space in the Wingham Columbus Center for township meeting purposes. And further, that the Township of North Huron defer decision of the request made by the Knights of Columbus, Wingham Columbus Center, until the discussions have been completed. Do I have a mover? I have Deputy Reeve Sites moving. Do I have a seconder? I have Councillor McBurney seconding. Last chance for questions, concerns, or comments. Not, go ahead,
Just one, Reeve.
Councillor Palmer.
There's two issues here. There is a cross path, but so is everybody still happy enough with, you know, we have needs, they have needs, and they don't necessarily intersect, but I'm just wondering, should it all be as one? Does that bother anybody?
Personally, no. I'd rather do one, and maybe it'll come to nothing, and maybe it'll come to 20 different things. We don't know until they have a conversation, but a conversation has to be had.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you kindly. Councillor Faulkner?
It may sound like a revolving comment by myself, but I would hope that those conversations would be looked on equally across the board with all other leasees or renters or users in similar situations. And it's not just one section being applying over and over and over again. We've had these requests before, so.
Absolutely, absolutely. I see my Director of Public Works may want to speak to this. Okay.
She's just there for the next.
Oh, she's just in the waiting. I do believe I have a mover and a seconder. Any other questions or concerns? Not seeing any. Did you have another one?
Yes, please.
Yep.
Councillor Faulkner's idea, okay, fine, but does that include the Blythe Playhouse?
I think those are comments for another day. I don't
They
think it's.
use our facility,
It's
that's
not
all
in-
I'm saying.
But it's not part of what we're talking about right
Said
now.
all.
Gentlemen, thank you. Oh yeah, call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Thank you. Public Works and Facilities. Director McCarthy is first going to talk about the fleet tender outcome, and then we will do the motion.
contract issued a tender to the industry requesting both a gasoline-powered crew and a hybrid crew or super crew truck. The tenders were reviewed following the procurement process. It is recommended 2 half-ton trucks be purchased to replace the 2005 Chevy Silverado and the 2000 Chevy Silverado. So Leslie Motors submitted a bid for $48,000 for the gasoline truck, and Trillium Ford Lincoln submitted a bid for the hybrid truck. As council is aware, it was $100,000 was allocated from the modernization funds to put towards these fleet replacements. And if there are any questions, I'm here to answer.
Okay, question, comments, concerns? Go ahead, Deputy Reeve Sipes, and then over to Councillor Heffer.
Yes, thank you, Reeve. You know, I like, I do like the fact that we are taking into consideration some electric and hybrid conversation. I do think that is obviously, you know, from an environmental perspective, that is one thing. The one thing I'm concerned about, and it's just this, it's not a concern in the sense of buying the vehicle. What I'm concerned about is the semantics of being over budget, because the discussion here doesn't take into consideration maintenance, savings on maintenance, savings on fuel. Because I can tell you right now, when you have a hybrid vehicle, you're going to save significant amounts of fuel if you're driving within a small area. I speak from experience. I have a hybrid vehicle. I don't have a truck. I don't have a hybrid truck, but I have a hybrid vehicle. And my suggestion is that my concerns is sometimes we look at these and we just look at overall cost at capital, and we don't take the consideration of the payback as to the savings in maintenance, the savings in fuel, and other things. So I mean, arguably, I think we're going to see those savings over the life of this vehicle. Obviously, with replacement of a fairly significant older vehicle compared to a new one, you're going to see those savings in maintenance. Sometimes I struggle with, it's just we're asking for $100,000, it's in capital, but when we talk about what the benefits are, sometimes we don't actually talk about the operating benefits of it as well, and therefore it causes it could be looked upon. I look at it as an example because if you look at it, yeah, we could buy 2 gas ones and we'd be under budget, but our fuel costs are going to be higher. So yeah, it's one thing to say your budget capital-wise is better by buying something, but your operating costs aren't going to be better, which is going to offset it. So I mean, I look at it as a whole combined. I think ultimately in my position, I love the recommendation, and that's why I'm in complete utter support. But I just wanted to throw those comments to the rest of council and to staff.
I'm going to go over to Councillor Heffer first, then to Councillor Faulkner.
Thank you, Reeve. To Jamie, I noticed it was a 16-year-old vehicle you're replacing, and you put 80,000 clicks on it. That's 15 kilometers a day, approximately. Is that good for an electric car? I'm not a mechanic. Is that good for batteries? It's not a lot of mileage going on the wreck vehicle. I'm just throwing that out there. I heard what Deputy Sipes said about savings, but when it's this low kilometers, how does it end up?
Through Bailey to Councillor Hubbard. Depending on what occurs within the rec department, it may not just only be used such with like the little bit of mileage that was used in the past. So the hybrid truck, it from my understanding, it produces electricity when it's running. So I don't know what I don't think it's any worse for it not running a lot or running a little, but I'm not a mechanic. That's just my opinion on it. I think we'd be think it'll be okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Faulkner?
Thank you. I think you may have just answered my question for me. I was just curious as to the hybrid electric vehicle, whether it was a electric storage vehicle or whether it was a regenerative vehicle. I was going to ask about the infrastructure costs behind it for a charging station, but from what I'm gathering from you, it is strictly a gasoline run generator on board, doesn't plug into the wall kind of thing. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. Yeah, Jamie, like Paul, I question the mileage. It's just, for such a dandy vehicle like that, it's not going anywhere. Would it be more suited in your department? 'Cause those trucks are everywhere. I don't know. It makes more sense switching it because it's just too good a truck for such low mileage. I know you said it may go elsewhere, but still. And do you know what the fuel saving is on a truck? Like, we know a car, it does improve it vastly. Do you know what it does on a pickup? Big honking heavy. I've got one, so they're pigs.
Sherwood Bailey to Council Palmer. I don't know the, like with fuel savings, it's how you drive it, how far it goes, and I don't know how the operators run the trucks that they currently have. So any savings that we should see might vary depending on use. When the time comes, whether it goes to recreation or whether it goes to public works, we can always determine that at the time once I do a little bit more research to find out maybe it would be better for the public works to drive that around.
Okay.
So I want to throw this out there. I think we should start thinking about what's happening in our world weather-wise. I think electric is the way to go. I know I just switched from a gas lawnmower to an electric lawnmower, and I wish I'd have done it a long time ago. So much later. So I'm just wondering, Council, if I'm just going to throw this out there, if we just buy the hybrid. And I really don't want to go into next year's budget if I can help it, because with COVID and everything that's been going on and the loss of funding from different sources, we may wish we weren't spending any money on next year's budget until we actually have a budget meeting. I'm kind of wondering if the council would, if we're going to do that, if we would just buy 2 hybrids and just run them for a year or 18 months and decide whether it was. No, I take that back. It is the way to go because we have to save the environment. That's all there is to it. We have to start making decisions to save the environment. So I'm thinking we should either buy the 2 hybrids, therefore starting the challenge for North Huron of saving the world, one little piece at a time, or we should just buy one and not buy the other until we've seen our budget, because I think we're all going to get really shocked when we see our budget. I hope I'm wrong. I have been known to be wrong quite often. This would be a very good time to be wrong. But before we start throwing our money away, I just want to throw that out to council and get your thoughts back on it. Or we can leave it as she's got it written here. Thoughts? Go ahead, Anita.
I would like to leave it as the way it is.
As it is. Anyone else?
If nobody else, Reeve, is going to make the motion, I will make the motion as it's presented.
As it's presented?
Yep.
Paul?
I'll second it then.
Paul's seconding it. I will read the motion as it is then, because we are at least starting something, aren't we, guys? Thank you very much for this, too. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report by the Director of Public Works and Facilities dated November 15th, 2021 regarding the procurement of the Public Works Replacement Fleet Vehicle. And further, that Council awards the purchase of the 2022 half-ton electric hybrid truck to Trillium Ford Lincoln for use by the Recreation Department in the amount of $51,963 excluding taxes. And further, that Council awards the purchase of the 2022 half-ton gasoline truck to the Public Works and Facilities Department to Leslie Motors Limited in the amount of $48,110 excluding taxes. And further, that the Council grants pre-budget approval to the amount of $1,150 to offset the increased cost of the purchase of the half-ton electric hybrid truck for the purchase of the half-ton half-ton gasoline truck. And further, the council authorizes the Director of Finance to incorporate $1,150 for the increased cost of the purchase of the half-ton electric hybrid truck and the purchase of the gasoline truck into the draft 2022 budget. I have a mover, I have a seconder. All in favor? Carries. Thank you very kindly. Next is maintenance gravel tender, and Jamie, you're up again.
Thank you, Bailey. On a biannual basis, the department secures bids for the crushing, supply, and application of maintenance gravel on rural roads throughout the township. The tender was released in accordance with the township procurement policy, and 2 responses were received. Joe Kerr Limited was the lowest respondent to the tender, provided a 2022 price of $265 per ton for crushing services and an additional $320 per ton for loading, hauling, and spreading of aggregate to the south of Belgrade Road. The total tonnage for maintenance gravel for 2022 is estimated at 21,000 tons. Renewal of the contract for year 2 is conditional on 2023 budget approval for maintenance gravel. So at this time, staff is recommending that the contract be awarded to Joe Kerr Limited.
Thank you. Going to open it up to the floor. Deputy Reeve Sight.
Sorry, Reeve, as I pulled this up again, and I want to make sure I declare my conflicts of interest correctly as opposed to the Conflict of Interest Act. Because of my employment, obviously because of my employment, I have an indirect pecuniary interest in this report, so I will be declaring and will not be communicating any as it relates to this report, and not voting on this report as well.
Thank you very much, Deputy Reeve Sight. Anyone else would like to speak to this? In that case, I'm going to read the motion. Yes, I'm sorry. Anita Van Henderson, Councilor Van Henderson.
This is to Jamie. What is the state of the municipal gravel pit right now? Is there any gravel left over, or is that used for emergency purposes, or what is going on there?
Through Bailey to Councilor Van Henderson. Could you clarify your question? Do you mean, is there any gravel left over from 2021?
From what's in the municipal gravel pit? Is there still any usable gravel there, or is this the gravel that we are purchasing, or maybe purchasing in this agreement? Is that extra, or how do, where's the gravel in the gravel pit used for?
Through Bailey to Councilor Van Henderson. So the gravel that was crushed, hauled and supplied on the roads this year, that's what was done to do the roads. The gravel pit still has gravel in it, so we would be taking gravel from the pit, crushing it. Joe Kerr would come in, crush it, and then put it in the trucks, bring it out to the other roads, and that's when they would be applied.
Okay, so there is no, it's just the crushing and everything from the gravel.
Yes.
It's our own gravel that we're, the municipal's own gravel that we're using right now.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Councilor Faulkner.
Through you, Reeve. Councilor Van Henderson brought up an interesting point. Is there ever, when we do the contracts for crushing, it seems to be the same amount every year. Once the equipment's there, it would be financially feasible to stockpile if there's added crushing time, to a point that maybe every 4 years you would have enough in surplus that you wouldn't have to crush that. I'm just curious as to, it's looked at just strictly as a crush as used situation? Mm-hmm. Thank you. I was just curious.
Yeah, so that's a thought for you, Jamie, to ponder as you move forward. It's nothing to do with what we're doing today. Okay, any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, we need to look at it as sort of custom crushing. So if it takes this much time and money to do what we need this next year, or you're maybe thinking of 2 or 3 years, well, then it's more crushing, so then the price goes up. So I don't think there'd be any saving from doing more than a year, like stockpiling?
Labor always goes up and trucking always goes
Possibly.
up and
Possibly.
just
We'll,
just curious.
gentlemen, we'll let that Vicky have or Jamie have thoughts on that and come back to us another time, because it's not really the motion that we have in front of us, or conversation. Okay, so I don't think I've read this yet. I don't think I have a mover and seconder, so I'm going to read it first. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report from the Director of Public Works and Facilities dated November 15th, 2021, regarding the procurement of maintenance for gravel for 2022 and 2023 as for information. And further, that the contract for the crushing, hauling, and spreading of maintenance of gravel in the Township of North Huron for 2022 in the amount of $125,775 plus applicable taxes be awarded to Joe Kerr Limited. And further, that the contract for the crushing, hauling, and spreading of maintenance gravel in the Township of North Huron for 2023 in the amount of $132,000 plus applicable taxes be awarded to Joe Kerr Limited. Do I have a mover? I have Mr. Heffer moving. I have Mr. Palmer seconding. Last chance for questions on this one. Not seeing any. I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Thank you. Thanks, Jamie. Okay, Fire Department, we have no reports. Building Department, no reports. CAO, no reports. Correspondence, 8.1. Dave Tiffin, the Chair of the Wingham BIA Board, has accepted the resignation of the board member Ryan Ferguson. So we have a motion that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby accepts the resignation of Ryan Ferguson from the Wingham BIA Board, and further that bylaw number 25-2019, being a committee appointment bylaw, be amended to reflect this resignation. Do I have a mover? I have Mr. Heffer moving. Seconder, please. I have Deputy Reeve Sipes seconding. Questions, comments, concerns? Pretty straightforward. All in favor? Carries. Council's report, Reeves activity report. Believe it or not, I forgot to bring one with me, but on Wednesday, the county is going to be having a discussion whether to have a roundabout, a double roundabout, or a set of lights in Blythe. There's always a fourth option, but I hope we get enough votes for one of the three I just spoke about. So we are moving forward with that. I'm very happy with that. As everyone knows, I would prefer a roundabout. One of the reasons might be, again, the environment. You stop and start vehicles. Every time you do, you cause more pollution. Second one might be is, I believe that Godrich might have one of the oldest roundabouts in Canada, so it'd be nice for us to have a second roundabout. I do believe if you go to what they call the bluffs up along Godrich and ACW, where there's a 400-house development, and then another 400 house being added to it, you will see roundabouts. You will not see lights. It's just the future. So let's get off the horse and into the tractor. Anyway, that will take place on Wednesday. That's about it for me today. Council member reports. This is reports from any boards that have, or committees that have been meeting. Not seeing any. We will then just go to comments by members. Is there anything members would like to bring out as comments? I'm going to start with Deputy Reeve Sipe.
Yes, thank you, Reeve. I did want to take my time tonight to offer a sincere apology to the Council of the Township of North Huron, as well as the Reeve, for missing a very important event in the municipality to provide welcome on behalf of the council. The Wingham and Regional District Silver Stick was held this past week, and they had their opening ceremonies on Friday. Due to no alternative fault of my own, I mistakenly missed providing those welcomes and greetings on behalf of the municipality, on behalf of the Reeve, as the Reeve was not able to attend. I stopped by there on Saturday morning to provide my heartfelt apologies to the people, the convener who was there. I've sent an email as well to the overall convener of the tournament of both the Atom and the Midget Silver Sticks, apologizing to them severely, and I've contacted the Reeve as well. This is not something I take lightly. I thrive on trying to ensure that I provide greetings, be supportive of community events when they are held. And again, I'm not going to make any excuses about it. A mistake was made, and I'm taking responsibility for that mistake. And I wholeheartedly want to, again, like I said, apologize to the council, apologize to staff, and apologize to the Reeve for not being able to, for not attending that important community event, because, you know, those volunteers worked their tail off to come out of COVID and make sure that tournament ran as best as it could under the circumstances that they've had. And I really feel terrible in the sense of not being able to go there when I should have been there to make those greetings. So I just wanted to pass that on, Reeve, to you as well as council, as well as the public.
Just want to say in return that Deputy Reeve Sipe put so many hours in, and his heart is in his counselor position. He really, like the rest of us, but he really steps out. I've asked him on a minute's notice to do different things for me, and I cannot say enough how much I've appreciated 3 years of support from him. He has really been a good lieutenant governor, I guess you would call him. But anyway, Trevor, we all make mistakes, but I want to say, do not take it hard, because you have done so much. Even before this council sit here, we're quite aware. And I want to thank you for the support you've shown me over 3 years, because some of the going was tough and I needed your help, and you were always there for me. Anyone else like to speak to that? Or anything else? Go ahead, Mr. Heffer.
Yes, thank you, Reeve. Just on Friday night there, they had the main street had sort of an opening to sort of a kickoff for Christmas, and it was very well accepted. Lots of things going on. The stores had little promos there and whatnot, and they're very happy with, considering the weather, what it was like. They're very happy with reception that they got. As you said, coming out of COVID, trying to get going. It was a good night for them. They're very happy. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on. Does Jamie wants to speak?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we're going to go to the bylaws. Bylaw number 7.
Notice of motion.
Oh, sorry, notice of motion. My apologies. Got ahead of myself. Imagine that. Seeing none, bylaws. Bylaw number 87-2021, purchase and sale agreement with third reading. I'm going to have Jamie speak to this for a minute. Clarification on something here.
So there was, on page 7 of the agreement of purchase and sale, under Schedule A, there was a mention, the purchaser agrees to purchase or lease hangers to current leases as depicted below. So I spoke with the Papples, and we will just be removing the to purchase, those two words from the final agreement.
Okay.
So that's just one clarification.
Thank you very kindly. Okay, I'm going to have Carson read bylaw number 87-2021.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the recommended motion would now be that bylaw number 87-2021, being a bylaw to authorize the Reeve clerk to sign on behalf of council an agreement of purchase and sale between the Corporation of the Township of North Huron, the vendor, and Summer and Tyler Pappel, the purchaser, for a portion of land legally described as part of lots 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, Concession 1, Geographic Township of Morris, Municipality of Morris Turnberry, County of Huron, be read a third and final time, be signed by the Reeve clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book, subject to the required wording change to Schedule A of the agreement.
Okay. Do I have a mover? I have Chris Palmer moving. Seconder, please. I have Councillor Heffer seconding. All in favor?
Discussion?
Councillor Palmer has a discussion. Would like to ask something.
I know we've talked about it, but I'm still not, I'm really glad you took out purchase, but leasing the hangars it should be wordsmithed differently, because the hangars are owned, privately owned, so should it not be the land that they're upon, or hangar land, or something different? Because words are everything. We don't want anyone upset by what they read and identify it as translated something different. It's just being more correct.
Councillor or Deputy Reeve Sight?
And I don't disagree with Councillor Palmer. I guess the question is, the understanding or the thought behind this is that prior to the purchase and sale, we are the leasee or leaseor of the hangars. All we are doing in the purchase and sale is taking our name off and putting the Papple's name on. That is the intent. I think the intent is the intent. I think everybody knows that's the intent. Obviously, because of the fact that if we didn't do that, there would be other issues. The way the lease agreement is that's the only way we could do it, because of the way the wording of the original lease agreement is. So I think that is the clarity that we were looking for, or at least that I'm gearing is that the thought is that the Papples are leasing those hangars to the owners or who are leasing them today, and they're required to hold on to those leases until those leases expire. When those leases expire, they have the right to determine what they want to do with those leases. That's the intention of the agreement. So I'm not seeing anything that isn't the intention. So if taking the word purchase to is out, really, that is really what we're saying. They're not purchasing anything. All they're doing is they're leasing the places on behalf of from us. They're taking our name off of it and putting their name on it.
Jamie would like to speak to this.
I just wanted to add that this has been vetted by our legal, so it's all been through our lawyers, and this is the final document that they agreed that it was what needed to be.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Okay. Any other questions? Not seeing any. I have a mover and seconder. All in favor? Carries. Bylaw number 90-2021, fees and charges bylaw, that the bylaw number 90-2021 being a bylaw to establish fees and charges for the Township of North Huron be introduced and read first, second, third, and final time, and be signed by the Reeve and clerk and engrossed in the bylaw books. Do I have a mover? I have Paul moving, seconder. I have Councillor Hittersum seconding. Questions? Trevor?
Yes, Reeve, I just want to, when we made the motion a year ago to change the fees and charges bylaw in regards to the non-residents discussion, there was obviously communication out to the users of those services. My question is the staff, is there now, because we know how it doesn't seem to matter how public a meeting is, people don't seem to remember or recognize that we've made a change. So my question is there going to be some communication from those departments that are significantly affected to the users of users of those services to ensure that there is an adequate communication? Because I would hate to hear on January 3rd, well, I didn't know that, and it's now November 15th when council's given the motion to accept that. And we know the fees and charges bylaw are effective in January, but I think we need to make sure that we're communicating properly to the users of those services.
Do you want to speak to that? Go ahead.
Yeah, through your worship, in terms of, so similar to what was done when it was put into place, there was a notice that went out to the users advising them of the new fee structure. And subject to council's approval of this bylaw, there will be notice to go out to the users advising them of the new fee structure, which I'm sure the users will be very happy to hear.
Thank you.
I believe I have a mover and seconder for that. Any other questions, concerns, comments? Not seeing any. I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. 11.3, bylaw number 91-2021, Child Care Services Provider Agreement. That bylaw number 91-2021 being a bylaw to authorize the Reeve Clerk to sign on behalf of council a service agreement with the County of Huron to provide child care programs and services in the Township of North Huron be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time and signed by the Reeve Clerk and be engrossed in the bylaw books. Do I have a mover? I have Anita Hitterson moving. I have Rick McBurney seconding. Questions, concerns, comments? Seeing none, I call the motion. All in favor? Carries. Bylaw number 92-2021, zoning bylaw amendment for Hawkins. That the bylaw number 92-2021 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 82-2008 as amended, being the zoning bylaw of the Corporation of the Township of North Huron for a zoning bylaw amendment as it applies to Lot 29, Concession 7, East Wawanosh Ward, 38622 Glens Hill Road, Township of North Huron, be introduced, read a first, second, and third and final time, be signed by the Reeve and Clerk and engrossed in the bylaw books. Do I have a mover? Do I have a mover? I have Rick McBurney moving. I have Anita Hitterson seconding. All in favor? Carries. Announcements. Next regular council meeting will be held on Monday, December 6, 2021 at 6 p.m. at the North Huron Town Hall Theater. A budget meeting will be held on Thursday, December 9th, 2021 at 9 a.m. at the North Huron Town Hall Theater. The next Economic Development and Recovery Committee meeting will be held on Thursday, November 18th, 2021 at 2 p.m. at the North Huron Town Hall Theater. The next Wingham BIA Board meeting will be held on Thursday, November 18th, 2021 at 6:30 in the Hot Stove Lounge at the North Huron Westcast Community Complex. The next Blythe BIA Board meeting will be held on Thursday, November 25th, 2021 at 8 a.m. at the Blythe District Community Center. Other business.
Your Worship, if I could, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our new Director of Finance.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and I will give you the floor.
Thanks. Darcy Chapman has joined us as Director of Finance. He's down there going to give a wave for members of the public. As council and the public is aware, Donna has been with us for 20 years and announced her retirement for the end of the year. So Darcy is joining us to carry that torch forward. Darcy has worked, actually comes from an extensive background in municipal government, most recently with the municipality of Meaford. And he was Director of Finance or Director of Corporate Services. I forget the exact title, but certainly was responsible for the financial affairs of that particular municipality. So anyways, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Darcy on behalf of council and staff.
Darcy, on behalf of the Reeve, we had a real quiet meeting just for you tonight. Okay, closed session reporting out. We don't have any confirmation of the bylaw. That the bylaw number 93-2021 being a bylaw to adapt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by the Council of the Township of North Huron at the November 15th, 2021 meeting be introduced and read a first, second, third, and final time and be signed by the Reeve Clerk and engrossed in the bylaw books. Adjournment that the Council of Township...
You need a mover.
Oh, I have Councillor Palmer moving. Seconder is Councillor Heffer. All in favor? Carries. Adjournment. The Council of Township of North Huron agrees there being no further business before council. The meeting hereby adjourns at
7:24 p.m.
7:24 p.m. Do I have a mover? I have Councillor Faulkner moving. As seconder, I have Councillor McBurney seconding. All in favor? Carries. Good night, everyone. Stay safe.
My God, that is awesome.